Hello, Deborah. Thank you for being here in PyCon Colombia 2018.
Thank you for having me.
Is this your first time here in Colombia?
Yes, this is my first time in Colombia.
Oh. How did you find interesting in this country?
So far I've mostly just been to the conference. I landed right before it. But I've really enjoyed meeting everyone. Everyone has been so nice and so excited about what they're doing. And I've really enjoyed the tropical fruit, much better than in the United States.
Yeah? Okay, nice. How did you react when you received the invitation from PyCon Colombia?
I was super excited. The first thing I did is I responded, yes.
Oh, nice.
And then I told my entire family. That was it. And then I asked, after I responded just saying yes, I wrote John and asked him more questions about what I should put in the talk and what the audience would be like. But I've been really excited about it ever since I got the invitation.
Cool, and what did you think your family about this trip and Colombia? And
they were really excited for me too. Last night my mom listened to me practice my talk at 11 p.m., which is impressive.
Oh, nice, really, really nice. So you have a soft background in machine learning.
I do, right.
Okay, let us start by sharing a little bit about your personal history. How did everything happen?
How did I get started in programming and machine learning?
Yeah, your motivation, not just machine learning, also computer science and this world about research and academics and all that stuff.
I grew up in rural Nebraska.
Okay.
And when I applied to college, I knew that I wanted to study some sort of science, but I didn't know what. So when I went to school, I actually started out as a psychology and classics double major. Nice. And I wanted to do research and maybe do something like be a doctor. But then I ended up actually transferring universities to MIT. And when I got there, there was actually no classics major at MIT. It's almost all engineering majors.
Yeah.
But I started doing research in a psychology lab that was focused on how people perceive things visually. And the PhD student that I was working with asked me to analyze some data using MATLAB.
Right.
And I thought that it was incredibly hard. It took me so long, I didn't understand it, and it made me feel really stupid. And I really hated feeling stupid.
Yeah, that happened.
And I guess a notable thing here is that it's okay for programming to feel hard in the beginning. That doesn't mean you can't be good at it. You just need to practice more. And so I knew that I needed more practice, and I was afraid that I wouldn't get enough practice if I was just doing this in my spare time in my research. So I added a computer science double major. And so I ended up majoring in psychology and computer science.
That's amazing.
And then fortunately my program had a fifth-year master's program.
Yeah.
And so because I had added computer science a little bit late, I felt like I got to all of the coolest classes in my last semester. That was where I took my first machine learning class, my first operating systems class.
Holy Lord.
And I was like, but this is all over now. So I decided to do the fifth-year master so that I could work on a project that used a little bit of machine learning, and I could do something a little bit more systemsy. So I ended up working with a postdoc who does reinforcement learning, using reinforcement learning to schedule process threads on a multicore chip.
Great.
And at that point, I had also become sort of interested in teaching and how an engineering education can can change the way people feel about what they can do themselves.
Okay.
So I found that in my time studying engineering, I started to think about problems differently. Like instead of just, whoa, that's a really big problem, I would start to think about how I could break it up into different pieces and start with the smallest piece and then build up from there.
Yeah. Try to change the approach to
Yeah, so just sort of have this iterative approach where, you start with the simplest thing possible, and you can probably do the simplest thing possible. And then you can just add something a little small on top of that and something small on top of that. And by the end, you end up with this really big, complicated system, which can often do some really cool things.
Yeah, but sometimes it's hard. Maybe we can use the bottom-top approach and in this way tackle some problems, and maybe the solutions can be easily to find and to manage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I ended up, I wanted to do more with education. So I ended up taking a Fulbright fellowship to go to Cambodia and learn about how education translates into job creation, particularly in the technology sector. And so while I was there, I learned a lot about how a lot of different schools were approaching technology education, and some of what worked and some of what didn't.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I took a job as a software engineer at a startup in San Francisco, doing web development. But after about a year there, I realized that I was getting good at a lot of things, but they weren't necessarily the things that I most wanted to be good at. So I decided to take a PhD program at Harvard, where I was working with a professor to apply machine learning to medical data. And that's how I ended up in machine learning. It was actually first, I would say, the research that I did as an undergraduate was the first time that I was introduced to programming, probability, and statistics. And then throughout his 5-year PhD, the graduate student that I was working with, research interests changed from just pure psychology to being developing computational models of how people see things and how people perceive the world. And so as such, you sort of need you need to know some probability, some math, some linear algebra. And that was what gave me the background so that I was able to start approaching machine learning both in my master's and in my PhD.
We talked a few about your work, but now we want to know more about you. Which hobbies did you have?
So after I was thinking about this question, and I actually think this is a pretty hard question because I do a lot of things. But I'd say the thing that probably takes up the most time after work is I spend a lot of time convincing people that they should learn how to program.
Okay. It seems like a hobby.
It's a really fun hobby, actually.
But it's really fun.
Because it's really fun to see people do things that they thought that they couldn't do. And to see, and everyone has ideas. Almost everyone has some idea of something that they'd like to do, and programming could help them get there.
Of course.
So helping them think about how they can get where they're going with programming is a lot of fun for me. I've actually, over time, convinced all 3 of my siblings to start programming. My older sister started out doing geology research. And she did a little bit of programming, sort of got more and more interested in it, and now she's transitioning into a software career. My younger brother and sister started programming in high school, something I wish that I had learned how to do. And they started a robotics club together. So they worked at getting people from their community to help them out, and they got an engineer to come help them, step through the process of building good robots. And now my younger sister just is starting a computer science degree as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley. And my little brother is still in high school working on the robotics team, and he's started programming for computer games. So he's been programming, he's been collecting data from Minecraft, a game that he likes playing. So he knows who is online when. And so he can learn things. So he wants to solve problems like maybe if one faction is going to attack another faction, then he wants to know when most people are online so that they can have a good attack.
Oh, awesome.
Which I thought was just amazing, that he's
Yeah.
you know, collecting all of this data and teaching himself all of these things because he's found, you know, a way to be excited about
Yeah.
it. And I think when you're learning programming, it is really helpful to have a problem that you want to solve. Because especially when you're just starting programming, a lot of it might not be fun at first. A lot of it is hard. It takes some time to learn how to think that way.
Yeah. And
So it's really nice to have another problem that you want to solve so that you can have that goal in mind as you're going through the hard parts of programming.
yeah.
And
The
so-
early times are not easy, but
Right.
we enjoy this work.
Something that I'm really excited and proud of is this year we're actually all going to PyCon US together.
Yeah.
And we submitted a tutorial where we're going to be talking about web scraping and getting started with machine learning.
Yeah.
And all four of us are going to teach it together. So I'm excited to
Nice.
teach everyone web scraping and machine learning while working with an entire generation of Hanuses.
Yeah, that sounds great. But that is a good work. That is a family good work.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. If you have to, and a really nice thing about it as well is like my younger brother is
Yeah.
almost 15 years younger than me.
Okay.
I feel like I would not necessarily have a lot. I don't know what else we would talk about if we didn't sometimes talk about programming. We could talk about family, but otherwise I'm not sure we would have that many shared interests.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to have something that I can share with my entire family like that.
Oh, that is really, really cool. One of the things that you have come to be known is research related to medicine and machine learning.
Right.
Right. How did that come about?
So I started working, so I told you a little bit about how I started working in machine learning. That was
Yeah.
really, wanted to learn about how humans perceive things. And then I started dabbling in machine learning to sort of develop models of how people perceive things.
Yeah.
At first, I actually wanted to do something similar in my PhD degree.
Okay.
And one of the things that I really liked about Harvard particularly is they have one or two great professors in everything. And so if you go to a larger research school like maybe MIT or Berkeley,
Okay.
you might have professors, you might have 5 professors who just do one narrow thing in machine learning, like maybe 5 for reinforcement learning, 5 for NLP. So then if you're one of their students, you end up knowing something very, very narrow.
Yeah.
You know, something all about reinforcement learning. Whereas something that I really enjoy about Harvard is whenever I talk to a professor about projects there, they say, just come up with a question that you want to answer, and we'll figure out how to get the data and get the best tools to do that.
Okay.
And the professor that I'm working with there, or had been working with there, is sort of carving out her niche in machine learning applied to medical data and helping doctors do their job more efficiently,
Yeah.
which I think is a really exciting area because it helps, because medicine is hard,
Yeah,
and being
yeah,
a doctor
okay,
is
yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And it would be great if there were more assistive technologies to sort of help them do their job more efficiently and more effectively, so that they can be less tired when they go home. Let technology help them with some of this.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was excited about working in machine learning and applying that to medicine.
Oh, great, really, really great. So generally in machine learning, academics use a standardized data set to work it, right? Related to your research, do people make use of a reference data set, or do they generate their own data and work with it?
That depends. I'd say for the most part with medical, when you're working with medical data, for the most part you're working with real data that has not been curated. There are
Okay.
some data sets which have been made more publicly available, like the MIMIC data set, which is a lot of data from an intensive care unit, so patients that are in
Okay.
bad shape. They take care of, you have information about all of the patient's vital signs as they're going through this. And so you can learn things about their vital signs to help doctors take care of them more easily, and perhaps maybe someone is going to have something like a heart attack, and you can sort of start to predict, like, maybe this person might have a heart attack soon. And so then that can help them care for them more effectively. But for the most part, I would say a lot of the data is data that doctors have collected with no intention of a researcher ever looking at it. So lots of times it's very messy data. It's like we're looking at patients' health records, which have some computer codes in it, some bad handwriting in it. So there's this very, for the most part, very unstructured data set that can take a lot of effort to sort of piece out and understand. So I'd say that is, in general, a large problem in the field, is that you need to, as a machine learning researcher, you don't know enough to make a difference in medical data. You really need a good collaborator who's also excited about how machine learning can help help medicine, to help you make sense of that data and understand how it's collected, so that you can develop better insights using machine learning.
Okay, that's nice. So there are lots of things happening with machine learning in both academics and industry. Would you consider, I don't know, starting a company?
So I actually just started a leave from my PhD program with the goal of starting a company related to machine learning. I still am in the process of doing some market research there to make sure to validate some of my ideas, but that is something that I'm really excited about right now.
Okay, nice. Well, by the way, I see your T-shirt. That is very, very nice. So, how the girls code?
They code amazingly, just like everyone else. I'd say that they code, in the same way that you would expect anyone else to. At first, it's difficult as you're learning to code, but then that you can expand in all sorts of different directions. And I'm excited that there are more women here who are excited about coding, and that's why I'm wearing the T-shirt.
You feel proud.
I am proud.
Okay, what suggestions would you like to share to all girls out there that are thinking to join in the computer science world?
I would say you should, if you're just starting programming, you should remember that it's hard for everyone when they're getting started. And if you look at someone else, it might seem like they're learning it more quickly, but there's a good chance that they're learning it more quickly because they have some experience before that you don't have. And all you need to do is keep working. And it really also helps to find someone else to work with if you can. Someone else who's in a similar position, and so that you can sort of step through it together and have some camaraderie. But I would say it's totally worth it. Even if you don't want to be doing computer science full time, it's a fantastic hobby. And there are a lot of great resources online that can sort of step you through the process to getting to the point where you feel better working on your own projects and solving problems with it. So I would say to girls who want to start getting into computer science, please do.
Yeah, that is a great suggestion. So, how do you see the future of Python in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope that it continues in the same way that it has been going, and that it keeps getting better. A lot of the things that I love about Python right now are I love that it's a fairly relatively intuitive language. I'm still not saying it isn't hard to learn Python, but the code looks more like how you might think the code looks than some other languages that have all of these brackets and parentheses everywhere. And I love that it's so well supported, and there are so many great libraries that can help you do anything. I mean, if you want to build a website, there are really well-developed tools for that. If you want to do data visualization, there are amazing tools for that. If you want to do deep learning, there's all sorts of stuff for that. If you want to do signal processing, there are great libraries for that. And I love how you can learn a language like Python, which doesn't, I don't want to say, I want to be careful, I don't want to say that it's easy, because it's absolutely not easy. but you know, there are great tutorials for it, so that you can start getting through it, and you can sort of just put one foot in front of the other and make sure that you know where to start tomorrow, even if you don't get through everything today. And then there are also great tutorials for any libraries that you want to learn. So once you start getting through Python, if you want to do something with machine learning, you can get started with the scikit-learn tutorials, and they actually have great documentation that explains a lot of things in machine learning. So I like how accessible it can be to people, and how nice the community is, and how even when people don't do everything right, they still seem to want to get more people involved and want people to be able to use Python. And so I hope that in the next 10 years we get even better at that, so that anyone who wants to start programming knows that they can get started with Python and do anything that they want to be able to.
Oh, and at this time, all those things are happening because in universities and industry, a lot of people are moving to Python, like the first language to learn of the people, from logic, from the simple tasks. But yeah, Python is an amazing language, and we are happy to bring these spaces for all the people, the tutorials, blogs, videos. There's a lot of material. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the future of Python for that reason, because if we get more people programming in Python, that means there will be more people who know how to build great libraries and write fantastic documentation in Python, which will just keep the progress moving forward.
Yeah. So, do you think it will be a dominant player in machine learning?
I hope so. I'm really excited that if we do manage to make Python inclusive for so many people, that we'll just have more talent to work on machine learning algorithms.
Okay, so thank you.